Okay, everyone, welcome back. We are live again with Dan Patrick. We are going back to our Terraform Kung Fu with Dan for the Build 5.9s. Last time we did resource groups and VNets. Dan, where are we going today?
Well, let's take a look. So we, as you said, did research groups, and now DevOps is being slow, which it's had a hard couple days. So we have next NSGs, public IPs, NICs, and VMs.
Yep.
I guess NSG makes sense to try to knock out real quick since we had the VNets, right?
Yeah, those ones are not terribly difficult to do.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like we're at a weird spot, and so maybe we should take 2 minutes to sort of chat about where we're at, right?
Yep.
So in our kind of hierarchy, if you will, of what we've been building, we have this idea of the 101, the 201, the 301, right? Let me get on my branch here. We can take a look at it on. I need one of those plugins that makes my GitHub dark. Have you seen one of those?
Yeah, I've played with a couple of them. I always have issues. GitHub revs so fast that it always seems like there's some element that doesn't look quite right in dark theme.
Exactly. It looks like I didn't push yet, so let's just go to writer here. So we have this concept of the 101, 301, and we sort of pulled that together yesterday by leveraging the code in the RG, right?
Yep.
What's interesting though about something like the NSG is that, I mean, yeah, we can write a 101 NSG, which I guess we'll do, right? Like it's just an NSG.
Yeah.
But what is kind of interesting about an NSG is the idea of associating it with a VNet, right? Meaning associating it with the subnet, and then later again associating it with a network interface or a NIC, right?
Yeah.
So we're starting to get this sort of plowing of things that are all rolling up together, and maybe that's okay. I don't know, right? Like if we said to ourselves, well, the next natural folder here is NSG, right? And then underneath there, we would follow the same thing where we have a 101 directory, a 201 directory, and a 301 directory, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple things to think about here. Like, first of all, do NSGs deserve a shared module? Do all things deserve a shared module? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is do all things no, and I guess that's the question here is the intent to show like the 101 has been the absolute simplest of what does it take to show an NSG,
Sure.
right?
Which that's easy, right? And then the 201 is to show it with locals and variables, and if there's any other sort of interesting functions, right?
Right.
That we could highlight. Like yesterday was really cool how we did the CIDR subnet thing and some of that stuff with VNets.
Yep.
But VNets, of course, deserve a shared module because they're huge. They're really important. You could have hundreds and hundreds of them. I mean, I guess you could also have hundreds and hundreds of NSGs, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe it's okay, right? But
Yeah.
when we do this implementation, like just writing an NSG, there's two parts to it. There's going to be the resource where we write the NSG, right?
Yep.
And then there's another just as important, maybe even more important thing, which is where you associate it, which is the association
Correct.
resource, right? So, I mean, I guess we can continue down this path and sort of see where it leads us, right? And maybe the point of this is, yeah, we're learning as we go. I mean, I'm certainly learning. I don't know if you're learning, but maybe you are, right? But sort of writing these samples to help people. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, well, we're a little snow plowing here. Like we're gonna need an RG again, we're gonna need a VNet again, and then we're adding the NSG. So like when we do our 301, right? I'm clicking on the stream window instead of my window. That's funny. When I do, like, why can't I right click 301? We're going to add modules here. Then we're going to end up with a directory that's like RG and I guess VNet again. and I guess NSG, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe when we do the nick, we might want to go back and write a sample here for nick too. So at what point are we getting confusing and writing a bunch of code that isn't helpful for what we want people to do with this?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if NSG is really the next one to go back and do, because the association you tie back into a nick, right? So
Well, but also a subnet,
that's
right?
true. Yeah.
Right, which we just did. I mean, I think it would be really useful, and if we popped open the Terraform universe and we go and find the providers, which is, let's see, that's functions. This is almost easier to do from Google, right? Terraform Azure RM virtual. In the sample, I think for virtual networks, they showed an NSG, did they not? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So I don't think they show an NSG in the
Yeah, look,
Oh, they
right
do.
here.
Look at that.
See what I mean? So, like, I'm starting to wonder if maybe our 101, 201, 301 is breaking down on us a little bit.
Well, that does raise the question then of what makes sense to be a logical module, because in a lot of cases, I'm trying to think. On some of our other projects, we've put NSGs effectively in their own module and fed in things like the VNets and subnets into them to go and do the association, right? Because we want to reuse that, and we want to effectively isolate up our security groups. Um, but
I'm
yeah,
starting to wonder if maybe what we should do is create a modules folder at the Azure level. And when we write the 301 samples,
they
we
migrate
are
them.
actually we're actually writing the module in the module folder, and the 301 sample is leveraging that module, because then we don't have the same code over and over and over again through the sample,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
And really, like, if you think about it, that is the real implementation, is it not? Right? Like, if you have a major project where you're going to use a bunch of shared modules that are in a folder here, not in some Git repo or somewhere else, wouldn't you contain them in one place, because they're effectively like a library almost, right? Or I
Yeah.
hate to say this out loud, but almost like kind of like a NuGet package or something, right? Where, like, but you get what I mean, right? In the
Yeah.
sense of it's within one place, and lots of projects will reference that. It almost becomes like an artifact, right?
Yeah. No, I can agree with that, and I think I do like that idea of having the 301 effectively propagate up to that module's level.
Yeah, like the 301 should just be like here where we're invoking those modules, not here where we're copy pasta, right?
Yeah. Though that does mean we're gonna have to think a little bit harder about what goes into those shared modules, though, right? Because some of
True, but
those some of
maybe in
those
a
we
way
did have to
that's good.
deviate a little bit on.
True. That is true. Like, definitely the RG module was different
Yep.
in and of itself, but maybe that RG module in and of itself, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe the way we implemented the RG module in the 301 RG one is incorrect, and we should actually take the one that's more useful to us elsewhere.
Well, and we certainly realized pretty quickly it didn't scale, right? And we actually had to refactor the code
Yeah.
because the RG module here is different than the RG module here.
Yep.
And that goes to this idea of, when we're writing this stuff, sort of thinking ahead, like what your real implementation is, right? The 301 was not the goal, right? The of RG was not our ultimate goal. It was supposed to be a tool to give us a resource that we're going to use for the ultimate goal of, like, having a sample. Or in this sprint, we were trying to have a VM sample that's a 101, a VM sample that's a 201, and a VM sample that uses a shared module, right?
Right.
Um, so maybe as a PO, I didn't have the right clarity of what we were trying to do, but we're, iterating, right? Um, so I think I'm an advocate of I think I'm going to be a fan of doing this. I think we should refactor this.
Okay. Well,
And
let's.
I would say that we would start with what we did here because I think what's in the VNet 301 for the modules, I think is better to migrate, right?
I agree.
Because I think it's going to scale.
Yep.
So if we take the RG,
Real quick before you do that,
yeah,
can we
maybe
do it?
we
Can we
should.
do a commit really fast
Yeah, let's see where we're at. Let's do a commit.
before we do anything overly crazy?
Yeah, that's probably a good plan. Okay, so let's stage everything. Let's take a look at what we've got. So in our templates, I'm going to remove this one. I'm going to unstage that NSG, right? Because I just did that.
Yeah.
So in templates, we've got 301. We've got,
Pretty much all the 301 stuff that we did because I think we did a commit right before the 201 stuff.
yeah. Okay, so let's say VNet refactor of modules. So yeah, so good plan. So we've got the module, we've got the RG module, and we've got the VNet. So this will capture our current state.
Yeah. That way, if and when we dork something up, because we know we left this in a good state, so
Yep, for sure.
let's
No,
persist the
good
good
call out.
state.
Good call out. Okay, so this is pre-refactor
Yep.
of going to more of a real shared module thing. But I think that this is going to be good for us. I was kind of thinking about this all last night. I was like, man, you know, like this isn't going to scale, is it? Right? Which in a way, this is kind of fun because it's like a real project. We did something that worked, and then we realized when we try to move on to the next thing or look at our goals, right? Look at our sprint, we say, we probably need to do something different, you
Yeah.
know? Um, cool. All right. So now you get a move. You think we're okay
Yeah. So
now?
now I have no problem. Let's take both those modules and drag them up.
So we'll find modules, and we're going to move RG out of VNet 301, and we're going to move VNet, right? And then let's refactor this, because obviously we need to now, right?
Yep. Yeah, because you can whack your modules folder down there now too.
Yep. Oh yeah, good call out. So I can kill this guy.
That guy's
And then
bad.
we'll refactor these to reference those folders, right?
Correct.
Because we moved where they are, and they even say like, "Hey, where'd everything go?"
Yeah, so
So,
1, 2, 3, 4 dot wax, I think. 3. Excellent.
okay.
Just like I said.
Yeah.
Counting directory structures is hard.
Right now, to me, I think this is a great lesson in and of itself. Like if you are actually watching out there, right, of how the power of the modules, correct? So can you talk about that for a second while I put this other one?
Yeah, so the Terraform modules, I think I mentioned it last time. All it wants to do is be pointed to a directory where it can find the stuff. So by moving the folders around, you can restructure your code however you want, and it's not going to make a difference in the end result.
Mm-hmm.
So that is interesting. That's
Yeah, it doesn't like that.
run a Terraform init real quick. I'm a little surprised it doesn't like it.
Yeah. Oh. Uh,
Invalid character. That's
let's see
interesting. How do
here.
we get an invalid character just by dragging something up?
Output tabs. This is not used within the language.
Let's go look at your outputs, TF, real quick. Did we accidentally insert an S or something when trying to do a save?
So line 1 of output in RG looks like it's all the same error. Outputs, outputs, outputs. It really didn't like that, did it?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if maybe we accidentally added an extra character in there or something.
Oh, weird. Look at that.
Yes, that
What
would
the
be invalid terraform.
what the hell is that?
I don't know. Two-factor auth accidentally pasted it when you didn't mean to.
How? I've moved the file. I didn't have it open. Weird. Okay. That
That'll
was weird.
that'll probably fix that error, I would imagine.
That explains why it was so violently upset. I was like, what the heck is that? By the way, you are a real trooper for being on the phone and like having a cold. So that's no fun.
Oh,
Well, I guess
thank you.
on the stream, not on the phone. Okay, so let's try this again. That's
Hey,
better.
that looks like a lot better.
That was bizarre. Okay.
Now you
Okay,
should be able to go
cool.
back and your ID should be all happy and green rather than scary and red.
Yeah. So maybe plan it. Did I destroy this before? Let's pop out
It
here in
shouldn't
Azure.
matter actually. You should be able to run the plan and see because you're using local state files,
Yeah.
and so unless you manually did something in Portal, which I think we've been doing it all through Terraform so far,
Yeah.
it should be able to detect. Yeah, it looks like it's out there because it's refreshing state on items.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be deployed, and more importantly, yeah, we should see no changes. So this is a great example of we just moved our folders all around and refactored,
Yeah.
but because the end resources have the exact same attribute values, Terraform realizes that there's nothing to actually do.
And how cool is that, really?
Yeah,
I mean, if you think about it, right? Like we just made a dramatic fundamental change in our entire project, in our entire approach to Azure, nothing. To our state file, nothing. Right?
easy
To me,
move.
that's so cool, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if you try to do this sort of thing with like an ARM template, oh boy, right? Like moving things around where things are, and you'd have all kinds of weird references and like, ugh,
yeah, and
so
here we just changed a couple paths, and we
couple
were done.
paths and completely refactored ourselves so that we are now set up for a better future. How about that? So one thing that feels weird to me about these is like there's main this and main that everywhere. Why don't we have a main in this 301 here?
Uh, Largely because we didn't need it.
Mm-hmm.
Because in general, we put a main TF in there to house things like locals.
Yeah.
And occasionally we'll cheat and put things like there's Terraform resources for pulling like current subscription and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We'll kind
Mm-hmm.
of put like some of the data sources in there. Um, but we didn't really need it in 301. Like there's no locals to be provided. There's
Well,
no
I also think that the other thing I was going to say about this, because it was kind of a loaded question, was a lot of times people will put the provider stuff in the main, right? You know,
that is true. Yeah.
when they don't have like, even if there's nothing else. So, I mean, we have this providers thing because we want to have a nice place to initiate all the potential different providers we would use, right?
Yep.
Which is certainly cleaner. And remember also this 301 was kind of supposed to be like it's the place where we're invoking modules from. So is there any, I mean, if you had a bigger project, there might be some call for a main, right? Like maybe
Oh
you want
yeah.
to throw a local in here for some specific reason. But we also don't have an output here because the outputs are in the modules folder.
Right. Well, and it's actually important by not having an outputs here, we don't
Mm,
actually see anything on our command line because outputs only go up that one level. So
exactly.
output from the module. So if we wanted this 301 module to actually output something, we would need to create an outputs TF and effectively forward something out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So interesting. Which could be useful, especially like if you're running a pipeline and you want to inject something out into a log or something, right? Like, because when we're running here, that output would come to us at the console, right?
Correct.
But if you're running a pipeline and you want the log to have something spit out, so it's in the log, you would want that output here, correct? Like that's how you would be able to capture that in line, because of course you're not sitting at the
Right.
at the console. I mean, I guess you can go and but
Yeah,
anyway.
well, more likely, the outputs at the root level are usually used when you want to have someone else ingest your state as one of their inputs, right? Like you could imagine separating out some sort of separation of concerns between maybe the pipeline that manages security, and it may set
Hmm.
up some base level stuff for you, and then you've got somebody else who actually manages like application level infrastructure, and they
Yeah.
need to say reference some of that base stuff, maybe resource groups or similar, right?
Hmm.
And so they need to bring it in, but then the question is, how do they know what to bring it in? They could do it with a data source, or they could ingest your state files and input as well.
Got it. Okay, cool. All right. So that was a quick refactor. How cool was that?
Yeah, commit.
Do you, yeah, I was gonna say commit, right? um, so I'm actually, let's see here. So we've got the modules there, and then what's here? So this is modules, RG output. So
Yeah, so those
I
funky
want to
characters must
stage,
have been there.
yeah, that was weird. So I want to stage that, and then I want to stage the VNets, and we're gonna leave this NSG stuff that I just started, right?
Yep.
So we got a nice clean. So now we can say refactor to module folder update only VNet to reference
Yep.
to module. So we're gonna leave that RG the way it is for now.
Yeah, because at some
I,
point we'll probably want to revisit it, but it does also leave a nice example of showing off how to go
I
through
want to
it.
leave that example.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do is, I didn't. We're doing good on committing code. I'm doing really bad on committing documentation. What's new, right? But once again, I said I was going to write all of the docs with the PR. I'm actually really glad that I kind of waited in a weird way. Although the commits would have been nicer with good code, but whatever. So good. So now we refactored, we committed. Good call then again.
Yep.
So let's move on and let's write this NSG. How's
Yep.
that sound? And by
Sounds
the
good.
way, I don't need this folder anymore.
Yep. That guy gets to go away.
El Wacko. What's nice is that these are nice and clean now too, right? Like you're only gonna have Terraform instead of mix and matching, and no more copy pasta. That's what we're supposed to do with modules as much as possible, right? So, all right,
Exactly.
cool. So, all right, so here's the 101. I pulled in the RG,
Right.
right? So we've got our basic RG,
Yep.
and we should
Now
probably
we
just take a
could
look.
technically, if you, I don't know how simplistic we want to go, but we could do an NSG without hooking it to anything.
Okay.
But I was gonna say that technically is minimum viable product, but it's also worthless. So, do we want to go far enough in 101 to actually show attaching it to something?
Um, well, we have to have something else in order to have something.
Right.
So it's a good question.
And
Like we
right
could
now all
pull
we have
in,
is subnets, right?
yeah, I mean, we could pull in the 101 VNet code, right?
Yep, that would get us to a subnet.
So that would get us to a 101, like where you have a VNet with an NSG,
Yep.
right?
So I think we'd have to refactor a little bit because I think the 101 code has the inline subnets and we would want to extract that so it wasn't inline.
You can't do an association to an inline subnet like that with an NSG?
The association object that you need wants the ID of the subnet, and
Oh,
so we effectively need the output of it. So we could do something with like a data source or look it up afterwards and whatnot, but it's just easier to pull the subnet out and not do it in line.
interesting.
I mean, either way, we want to go through and do this. So it's sort of like I said, I was just kind of raising the question of, do we want to, right? We don't have to, but do we want to?
Yeah. Um, this is what I was saying about this. It's starting to get, what we're trying to do is starting to get a little paralyzing, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, well, and at a certain point, it almost makes me wonder if, because there's going to be extra stuff, we could have our 101 sample always have just everything you need, minimum viable product inline in main TF.
yeah,
That's totally doable. That's
yeah.
somewhat in line with how Terraform does their docs. It does mean, though, as soon as we go to 201, 201 is going to start to grow very quickly, and we're just kind of punting the problem down a level. I almost wonder if we just assume that these modules are going to be taken in order and that we can start doing module references as early as 201.
Ooh. Or skip 201 and just go to 301. There's no 201 sample. I mean, the 201 sample for this would basically be, again, take the VNet like on in whole, right?
Yeah, separate it apart just like we did there. You know, break out the network, break out the subnets. So it would look remarkably similar to the VNet one with an addition of like an NSGTF.
Yeah. Maybe that's not so bad.
Yeah, and again, if it's all about people being able to take these modules individually and learn, that's totally fine, especially if the expectation is 201 is showing a concept, not what we would expect the end result to be. 301 is close to what we would expect the end result to look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I find interesting about these as I'm trying to learn is how I can see something and be able to use it. And what I've found is like with all the examples, there's a 101 that's so simple, I could have figured it out on my own,
Yep.
right? The hard one to figure out is like what we did yesterday, where we were outputting something from one module and picking it up from another. You know, like the harder examples are actually more interesting once you get past kind of just cutting your teeth with this stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, like, if it's true that we can only do NSG 101 by not doing the inline subnets, maybe we should just not even be showing the inline subnets anyway. Right? Like maybe the inline subnets are just stupid and in a way kind of deprecated almost, right? Like,
well, yeah, and in like in practical examples, I don't think I've ever used inline subnets. Simply because typically I'm needing to hook something to them.
yeah.
Not to say they're always bad. Like they could certainly be used and get referenced. You could still extract them out. Like they do come as an output from the inline VNet, so you can pull the subnets after the fact. But in general, I find it's just easier to have them as separate resources. So yeah, if that's the path we're going, let's get I guess minimum viable product just done.
I mean, we could just, I mean, I guess we could just create one, but the association is the interesting part of the NSG to me.
Yeah.
Like, how do I associate it? Because, like, yeah, it's cool and the rules are cool.
Well, then the question will become, and maybe we'll show this when we do the NIC stuff too, right? Like, because right now we don't have a clean way of doing. Like, we're only showing the subnet association, right? We aren't doing NICs because we don't have a NIC yet.
Yeah. Did we hard code these before? I'm having trouble remembering what
for
we
the
did.
101 for the 101 we hard coded everything straight through basically.
So this was like ECS name, and then so even when it says resource group, we're literally using this name, right?
Yeah, I believe we were just straight hard coding it. And we could probably do resource group naming and location associations here. Like that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's probably better if we do so that Terraform understands the relationship and doesn't try to create this before the resource group.
You're saying do Azure RM like this.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, like what you showed yesterday with the graph command, is as soon as Terraform detects that a resource has no dependencies, it's just going to kick it off.
That's what we did here.
Yeah.
That's what we did here.
Effectively trying to slow it down. Say, no, you cannot create this until the resource group is up. Please be patient.
Okay, so we've got this, right?
And now the security rules, we should put in at least one, right?
I love this. I love this, by the way, by Router. Did you see this? So if I right click that and I say search with Google,
Nice.
isn't that cool? Swing, 2 clicks and you're there. How about that, right?
That's pretty slick.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So this is the one we're looking at.
Yep.
We've got a resource group, obviously on ours. We've got the network security group, and then in line there it says security rule, right?
Yep.
Now this is sort of akin to the what we saw with the VNets sample yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Where it's in line like this.
And
Now there's another way to do that, which is use this, right? A separate.
Correct.
Which is, again, I think we should refactor our VNet. I'm starting to question our simplistic view yesterday. But if we look at this, we will want one of these, right? We want to create.
Yeah, and this will then have the association back.
Yeah. So that's the resource type we want. Because it's going to reference this for its association, right? So we've got a resource, we've got Azure under RM underscore network security group. Oh crap, what was it? Network security rule. Okay.
Yep.
And we'll call this B59.
I do like how that extension just automatically fills in all the required attributes for you. That is.
It is nice. And actually, the other thing, we haven't come across it yet, but if you fill in one by yourself, by habit, that's deprecated or replaced, it actually squawks at you and says, hey, do you know that this attribute used to be required, but it's been replaced with something else?
Oh, that's nice. That
which
is
very
really
cool.
nice.
Yeah, I think I saw that. Where did I see that? I think it's here. Watch this. Prefixes used to be.
Oh, yeah.
And it complains and says, or maybe it's like this. I think it's prefixes. One of them, I've seen it at least once or twice where it squawks at you and says, hey, that's a deprecated reference, which is also nice when you bring up old code because it'll find it then. The linter basically says, hey, you should probably refactor this, right? Which is pretty cool. So this is a rule.
Yep.
Let's take a look again at that and see what it says about the rules, because typically you have rules. So
yeah, because their simplistic example only shows a single rule and it's fairly contrived.
Let's go back to the search with Google. Okay, so they say a resource. Here's an example with a rule. It says the name, the resource group, where it's associated with, like you got to reference which security group.
You got to feed it the name of the NSG.
A description's optional. And then the tuples are required. So what protocol, the source, the range. So can you do this as a list? Like can you put in multiple rules? I don't think so.
So not you would effectively duplicate the resource multiple times over, right?
Yeah.
And that would be how you would get all of your rules.
Got it. So
I think for ours, let's put in 2 because I'm just thinking ahead of what we're going to want to do when we get to the modules level. Is effectively we're probably going to want to pass some. We're probably not going to want the rules hard coded inside our module. We're going to want that to come in from the outside.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to come down to passing in, say, a list of objects, right, where we can declare some of these things out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be a little bit cleaner.
So if we have one NSG that's going to be associated to 2 subnets, and we want the rules to both be in there, do we, like, it's our sample, if you remember, we've got 2 subnets.
Yep.
Apps and data. So should we have one NSG or 2 NSGs?
For a so eventually I see us having 2 subnets, but I think for the 101 sample we only do 1 subnet.
Okay.
Make our life easy. I think we do 2 rules though, because
Two rules,
two
one
rules, one subnet. Because I think we're going to want to show scaling out both ways, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have one network security group.
Yep.
We're going to attach it.
Yeah, attach the rule to the NSG, which that'll be line 43. And then I think we do one more rule as well.
Let's attach it to the resource group, right? And then we've got the network security group is going to be Azure RM network security group dot name.
Yep.
Right? And then we need to fill in what the rule would be, right? So let's assume this is apps. So let's maybe say it's like port 80 or something. I don't know.
Sure.
You know, like from the internet. So the access, it says, is
access, I believe, is either like allow or deny.
exactly. So it's required, and it says allow or deny. And you did point out that this shows the required one. So we're going to allow, right? This is inbound. I don't know. Direction.
I don't know if it's going to squawk at you, but allow is supposed to be capitalized according to the docs.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Direction required. Inbound or outbound. Yeah, like this one is uppercase or lowercase also. So.
Yeah, and I always have trouble keeping track of what things are case sensitive, which ones aren't.
Yeah. This is the name of the rule. So this is like what shows up in the text of the actual rule name, right?
So in this case, something like allow unsecured HTTP or something.
Like allow HTTP all or something.
Sure.
I don't know. Whatever. The priority is the number in order, right?
Yep.
What's interesting is that 0, I don't think will work. You can't have a priority of 0.
Yeah.
So I don't know why the sample says that.
Yeah. Well, the docs call out that the value has to be between 100 and 4096.
Yeah, there you go. So like I said, that would have burped, but whatever. We know that HTTP is TCP, right?
Yep.
And
do you want to give a better name on 39 for this rule? It's just calling it apps, I don't think is horribly specific.
Yeah, so that's where it's going to be associated to. That's not the rule, right? So what do you think? HTTP?
Yeah, I'm thinking something like HTTP allow or allow HTTP or yeah, something like that.
It'd be really cool if like those matched, right?
Yeah. Aside from the hyphen versus underscore, but yes.
We want this to be a hyphen, don't we? I mean, what we've been writing so far is anytime we have a string that we're passing that we'll see, it's a hyphen. Anything that's code that we're referencing, we're using
the underscore.
The underscores. That's what we've been doing. So that's cool. Okay, so we have basically what this will do is this will just give us a rule, or sorry, an NSG with one inbound rule that doesn't do anything, right? I mean, it can exist like this. There's no reason why it can't.
Right. But as you pointed out earlier, that's a sort of a meaningless one a little bit.
Well, I mean, let's just
prove that it works.
It works. That'll at least give us, a start, right? So terraform format to make it pretty. Terraform init to initialize this folder. We haven't run the folder here, so we've got to download the provider, all that jazz.
Go find all the things.
Yep. And then let's do a plan. You can always do a validate too, but a plan doesn't validate anyway, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, you'll get it.
It just makes you feel really good before you run a plan when it says success, Terraform is so fraught with something's always going to fail or be wrong. Those little success moments are important to me.
Yeah, I agree. Because you do that apply and then you realize something in Azure just whacks you down and says, nope, that name's already taken or something.
Exactly. So what's weird is in that other example I had this resource group, right?
Yep.
So there's probably going to be a little bit of burping. I guess I could go and destroy the other one, right?
Yeah. And
Where
I
was
think at
that?
some point it may help us if we start like throwing, like maybe this will go to your locals thing at some point, is we start doing putting in like VNet 101 into the resource group names or similar, just to disambiguate them.
Yeah, that would be useful maybe. So that they always have.
Yeah, so if somebody ever wanted to like stand these things up side by side, they could
Yeah, I
do
guess that's
so and
true.
actually look at them.
Yeah, because this is a little annoying, right? Like if you just ran them and they were always unique, right, to where it is, that might be useful.
Yeah, that would be a little helpful. Envisioning something like current module or something local that just has that string in it that we can slap in different places.
Yeah.
We can add that to the backlog.
Right? Isn't that what we always do where things go to die?
Yes. Send it to the backlog. Someone will eventually look at it in 3 years and go, "What the heck?
Right?
We did that months ago."
We did what? Do we create a tech debt feature? Right?
That's definitely an option.
Tech
Okay.
debt feature. Okay, so now, whoops, now we can go back. Go to, what are we doing? NSG, right? Go to 101, terraform plan. I should just do a reply. Did we like the plan? I don't remember if we
Yeah,
liked the
the
plan.
plan looked good to me.
Did it? Okay.
I mean,
All right.
it's hard to mess it up. There's a single NSG and a resource group.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
There's only so many ways it can go upside down on us.
So we end up with, I'm not sure if I like this name. I don't know why I put that in there. Is that bad? B59's VNet NSG.
Yeah, it seems a little off, since there is no VNet here.
Well, there will be though, because we're getting ready to add one.
Yep. I mean, it'd be fine.
What
Yeah.
do we call the VNet? We call the VNet. Oh, it's got.
It's got a location in it, and I think we only did that because we were gonna scale it out. That was in prep for doing multi-region.
So if we did like that,
Yeah, something like that would work.
better.
Yeah, once we add it in, we could just reference it too.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every time we do this, it's like real coding, man. Like when you do something, you go, "Oh, that's stupid." Oh, we already figured that out. Oh, right. Ugh. Okay. New plan. So now it's called. It's got the name and where it's attached to.
Yeah.
Some people would actually add the name of the subnet it's attached to here as well. Gets into that weird naming preference thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, um, I've seen people that have the names in these and be successful with it, and I've seen other people have the names in these and not be successful with it because you get in this weird thing where it's actually attached to all kinds of subnets, right? Or all kinds of VNets because people are like, oh, that one works, just use that one, right?
Right.
And then,
Reappropriated everywhere.
yeah, and then because they're lazy, they don't want to, uh-oh, didn't like something. Failure
Let's
sign,
see.
missing port.
Oh,
Oh,
we need to specify either source port range or
oh, the linter failed us. We got lazy and relied on the linter, and it
well,
failed
and
us.
this is one of those. It's because they're marked optional on the resource, but it wants one of them, right?
Yeah.
So like source port and destination port. Yeah. So on the docs, you'll note this is required if.
Yeah.
So even though it's flagged as optional, so your tool doesn't
You need
pick
at
it
least
up.
one side, or else there's nothing in the rule, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. So source port range. You have to
probably
specify
better to,
range or ranges. Take your pick.
probably better to. Oh, that's interesting too. So allow inbound, the name of it. I really don't like the order of these, by the way. And again, that's me.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you do source port range of star and then destination port range of 80, right? If we're going to say HTTP.
This is nice. This is here, right? Source port range.
Yeah, and I do star there. And then destination port range of 80.
It's also important to note is I think you could put internet here too, right? And use one of the service tags.
Good question.
Maybe that's not source port range though. Maybe that's source. What does it say? Okay, let's see what it says.
0655535 or star. I don't know if it'll let you do internet there.
Source. That would be this. That would be the source prefix. Is what I'm talking about. So we need that too. Source prefix or prefixes. That's a this is called a service tag. That internet.
So,
so this would be the CIDR range of the destination, right?
yes.
If we wanted to put that in there, right? Because you probably have to put something here too.
Yeah, this is required of destination address. Prefixes is not specified, so yeah, it is required. And I think you just put virtual network, don't you?
I could put that, yeah, virtual network. Again, a service tag, right?
Yeah.
So we're saying basically
star, but yeah.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying here is, and I would probably move this up. This to me also is another great case of readability of the rule rather than alphabetical. Makes sense?
Yes.
Because if you see here, you're saying, which way is this rule? It's allowing traffic in. It's coming from the internet. You might want to say, this is its name first. And then the source is from the internet, coming from any port on the internet. And probably I would do the prefix. I would have these in the same order. So the prefix and then the port. It's coming to anything that's on this virtual network on port 80 using TCP, and then what order it's in, and then probably its name, or maybe you could make an argument that its name should be here first, or maybe not, I don't know. Rule name. So probably going out to in the network security group it's attached to, and then what resource group that's in.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Something like that. So it'll probably like this better. Let's plan this again. Let's format it to make it purdy.
Always got to have the purdy.
Gotta have the purdy, especially when it does it for you, right?
We got to set you up with like a pre-commit hook that runs Terraform format on everything.
Yeah, that would be nice. We should put that in the backlog. Another thing for the backlog.
Okay, so the important thing to note here is Terraform did detect that it already created things like the resource group, so it knows that the only thing that's left to do is the NSG.
Yep.
Or I'm sorry, it created the NSG. It's just the rule that it's unhappy with. So the NSG should be out there already.
Interesting. Let's go check that out. Add Azure up. Must not. Oh man, an hour goes really fast, doesn't it?
It does. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yep.
Or sick and psychotic. It's one of the two.
So here is
an NSG, and more importantly, the
NSG.
NSGs do come with pre-canned rules inside of them.
Yes, exactly. So let's take a look at what our plan looks like.
We're just going to tack on our own rule to it.
And type auto approve. Auto approve. Would have been faster to just type the yes. I am the self-proclaimed typo king, and I don't care.
You do. I will not try to take that role from you.
Hey,
you do it so well.
I do it well. You got to embrace who you are. I had a boss one time who sent me the nastiest email I ever received in my entire life. I worked on something all weekend, very hastily, something I wasn't supposed to work on. And I said, here, take a quick look at this. I know it's rough. And the reply back was, I should go and have I think like a remedial English class or something like that. And I said, yeah, okay.
Get right on that.
Yeah, I'll get right on finding a new job, which I did. And now I make a lot more money and I'm way happier. So how about that? Take that. Hey, look, it added a rule.
Sweet. So now we should be able to refresh Portal.
If I can find my tabs. I don't know what I did. I lost the tab again.
Gotta quit closing down Azure.
That's a good point. The other thing is I need to switch which ID or which edge I'm on. Have you used that Azure Portal app? Have you tried that? The Azure Portal?
I saw the link that you posted for it. I have not tried it yet.
It's actually pretty cool. And the reason why, that's not it. Where's the app? It's pretty cool because, here it is. Maybe that's some dude's blog about it. Here we go. It's nice because, it's using like Chrome or something in the background. But what's really cool about it is that, you don't have any other tabs or any other CRUD running in that context, So it's actually, the portal is way faster.
Oh, that's true.
Because you don't have like anything else, we all have like 10,000, this is like a standalone app. So that's pretty neat. You don't have like the, everything else around. So because of that, it makes it way faster. Hey, look, there's our rule.
Sweet.
So allow HTTP on port 80, TCP. So anything coming from the internet, this is one of those service tags that we talked about.
Yep.
And so is this to virtual network. So if we had, when we associate this either to a NIC or to a subnet, then we would be good to go. So cool. Well, I'm out of time already for today. So how about that?
Well, but at least we made progress, and I think we've got a plan going forward of how to finish this out. So
yeah, I think we do. I think we have a better plan. So probably what we'll do is, I might finish up the association of this with the VNet,
Yep.
On this sample, push forward, and then when we come back, we'll do the 201 and the 301. So we have a more complex version, and then a module, right? So
cool.
Well, coolio. Well,
Sounds
thanks,
good.
man. Always fun to be streaming with you. Tell everybody to go to Build 59s. That's where we hang out, right?
Definitely. Build59s.com. Check it out. Subscribe to their newsletter if you're not already on it.
There it is, right there.
Dan and Chris, they post a ton of awesome content. You can.
There's a new one out here. There's a new one down. The weekly newsletter just dropped. So
sweet.
Cool.
Awesome.
All righty. Thanks,
we'll
brother.
See everybody next time. Thanks, Dan.
Later.